Salutations, everyone! Welcome back to Total War Pharaoh. I'm Lord Formand, and here we are with Kurunta, the usurper of the Hittites. Unlike the Hittite king, I can actually say this guy's name. So this guy is a fun character, and I hope you enjoy this guide. So if you do, like, comment, subscribe, those great things that help me with the channel and encourage me to do more. Please do those. Also, I will be dividing this video into various sections covering different topics, so I will timestamp them below and you can kind of jump to what you would like to. And that's pretty much it. Let's jump straight into this. So, Kurunta is a interesting faction. I really want to like him because of the concepts behind his playstyle, but I really don't. He's called the Usurper. It really doesn't make a huge difference. Unlike just like most of the factions, he doesn't really play to his title. In terms of his buildings, they're some of the more interesting ones. You actually have a building here, a military sabotage post, which reduces enemy movement in adjacent provinces, meaning it takes a lot longer for people to invade your land. The downside is most of the AI factions just simply go to force march and race into your lands regardless. I think that should be a higher movement, or it should reduce force marches or prevent force marches. That would be more beneficial. It also reduces enemy melee attack, which is nice. Putting these on your border as you start to invade somebody will help. Raiding income can help you with getting resources if you're lacking, but the reality is if you're raiding, they're probably going to declare war on you, and if you can't take their lands with force, raidings just might lose you armies. I tend to take land rather than raid, unless I have to. His mercenary camps are interesting. Again, like the other Hittite faction, the food income is pathetic. The upkeep is nice, and the XP per turn is also rather good. And then his mercenary office here does give you more recruitment, but does lower your influence, which for a Hittite faction is a problem. So let's continue and go over the rest of his strengths and weaknesses, then we'll get into starting moves and stuff. So his weakness is reducing the influence. It's actually a lot bigger penalty than it would seem. In terms of his faction units, he's strange. His units are they're good at charging, but they're not really good at holding a line of fighting, and he has no missile infantry, which is just strange. I personally like having some missiles in my army just to harass people. He does have chariots with javelins, though, which make up for a lot of his lack in range, but they're higher level units that you have to spend time getting bronze to do. In terms of his commands, he gets increased rating if you do the command. On the other hand, you can't colonize ruins. Combined with his other raiding buildings, he gets a lot of raiding income. But why don't you just take the land yourself? Now, the justification is if the sea people are going to invade and you don't think you can stop multiple sea people's invasions, raiding is great. Gets you some resources, you don't have to defend the land, and you weaken the people holding it. The downside is you get less from raiding than you do from actually occupying and growing the settlements. A better use is on Shemsuhor. If you haven't used your command, your armies reduce enemy morale. That is extremely strong. You're basically the only faction that has a passive battle benefit from not using your command. Others get growth. Ramses gets units. This guy just reduces morale. It helps. It's not game-breaking, but it is very strong at routing enemies. And since your faction's all about charging, it helps. Now, his court actions, though, are very fascinating. He gets plots that go up to level 6. Most people go to level 5. Level 6 basically means all his plots are going to succeed multiple every time you use it. The reality, though, is if you play properly, level 5 plots should succeed anyway. So yes, you can almost always succeed on legitimacy. You also plot start at level 2, so meaning like they have a better chance of succeeding. But the fact you're limited to 1 discredit really does reduce his ability to gain influence. Getting additional like requests, or if you want to steal positions, in court can really help, but I don't know. I just don't find this guy to be that benefit to be very strong. It's nice to always succeed on plots, basically. It means you can plot against the High King with barely any risk, but it's still expensive to do so. Basically, it helps you get more legitimacy when you're low legitimacy. But once you get high legitimacy, the effect falls away. Now, he worships basically the namesake of his god because he thinks he's a god. He's kind of cuckoo. I don't like this god. I think it's one of the worst ones. It's not particularly strong. You're better off switching to a different god once you get another dedication slot, which is good. You get charge bonus and influence, which does help control some of the Hittite problems, but you have no happiness. Basically, you want a god that gives you happiness. This does not provide it. In terms of your titles, you get Shadow Stance and Reduce Happiness. So basically the concept is you'll move into lands, raid, cause revolts, and then take over. The reality is revolts barely succeed most of the time. The AI is particularly good at stopping revolts, so this kind of negates most of his playstyle. I guess that's why I don't like him that much. There's nothing really special about his legitimacy. In terms of his legacy, they say do the Overseer, establish Hittite princes, and give them command of the vassals. I don't like this. I think the Benevolent legacy is still better as this guy. Mainly because this requires you to have vassals, whereas this guy just pretty much wants to conquer everything. Maybe have one vassal, in which case the Benevolent one is better because you get like free buildup, or free units or other stuff. Having better princes is okay. I wish the Hittites had more legacies than 2, though. It really hurts at this point. Be aware, though, you do have fog and storms, so invaders have trouble. But you have very heavy armor. You're really good at fighting in this region. Let's fix their random orientation of the map. But once you expand out of this area, you do struggle in deserts, so just be aware of that. This guy in particular, because it's easy to go by sea, if you wanted for some strange reason to pick an Egyptian legacy, which honestly might not be the worst move, but then you're going to struggle taking the crown. He's a very interesting faction. So let's get started into his strengths and weaknesses of his starting location. Not of his faction, of his starting location and how to expand. Okay, so here we are in his capital of Tarhuntasa. I think this city still survives in some incarnation. The name seems familiar. It's a good settlement. You've already got some good buildup of units. Your recruitment is large, so you can recruit a lot of units. You have some decent food, but you need more. It's definitely worth getting a livestock field, a bakery, and probably a grain pot going, just so that you have resources. You don't have any special buildings in your starting area, which is nice. Mainly because that way you can use it to get wood and more food without feeling like you're losing out building slots. In terms of your buildings, you're into native mustering fields, which is good, but at some point you want to get infantry housing so you can get actual Hittite units on there. You do have these mercenary halls, which are interesting. They're very strong. It's just weird that you have like 3 recruitment lines, not including chariots. If you can get chariots, great. I didn't find a ton of use in the mercenaries, which sounds weird because they're really strong. I just didn't have a lot of building slots, I guess. So in terms of your actual moves here, this guy has a bonus towards killing captives. You may want to kill captives as this guy just because it does last longer. And since you're all about kind of causing morale problems and fear and strengthening your army, it kind of goes along with this play style. So you're going to want to take this guy out. It's not hard to do. I'm just going to quick play this so we get a better view of the landscape. There we go. So once you get to here, you can march into this land and you can actually take it. if you fight it. If you fight it, you can win. Otherwise, you need to retreat back to your lands and build up. I found fighting both battles was the way to go. Getting another settlement early was great. Otherwise, fight the first battle and build up. You want to take the settlement, and once you take the settlement, this whole region falls. Not kidding. I don't think I've ever seen more rapid expansion from a faction. You build up, you take this settlement, you march north, you take this. Once you've done that, you pretty much march over here, declare war on these guys, invade, and just wipe them out. And very quickly, you'll have controlled this whole area. 2 regions. This area is, off the map. This is on the coast, so you have to fortify for sea people. But then you just invade north, you get access to copper, you get access to bronze. You take out these guys, you've got more food, you've got more stone, at which point you've pretty much become the largest faction in the game. I'm not kidding. 3 regions is huge. The High King will be struggling to maintain his control. I don't recommend joining the first Civil War unless you want to. You're better off just ignoring legitimacy and diplomacy and just start conquering things. I'm not kidding. It's really easy to control this area. For some reason, none of the other factions seem to be able to stop you. But when you play as the High King, it's really hard to expand. It's just strange. The biggest threat you're going to have is actually sea people invading your lands from the north, south. They're problematic in your capital regions and everywhere else on the coast. Make sure you throw down city guard stations. Keep an army. Sibra here seemed to be a decent spot to make sure I didn't have any invasion forces. And at some point, once you've conquered this area, just keep expanding. If you want to go for the throne, go for the throne. The king is hard to kill. To take his lands is really difficult, but it's super easy to surpass him in legitimacy because he struggles to expand. Once you've overrun that area, pushing on to Tarsus, gathering this area, I would stop here though. There's a nice mountain chain here. Stop about there and focus on taking out the rest of the Hittite lands. Keep an eye on your influence. Sadly, the Hittites have several different culture groups as well as merchants and stuff. You're a normal Hittite. There's East and West Hittites. You're going to have to put down influence buildings. Unlike the High King, you do struggle with maintaining both happiness and influence, meaning buildings that give you both, like halls of records. Where's the other one? Oh, I don't have a minor settlement. In the minor settlement, oh, right here. Here we go. New scryer stands are great, as well as artisan workshops. You're gonna have to build more of those than you'd expect this guy. He doesn't have any major bonuses. Swapping religions, getting away from this shrine of Kurunta, which is ironically the guy's name, probably because he adopted it from the god, is a good strategy. Picking up a god that gives you happiness, combining the two, you'll have huge amounts of influence to control the West and East Hittites, as well as happiness is invaluable. So on that topic, actually, no, we have one more here. The other thing to realize is this province here, Lystra, everybody wants. I don't know what it is about this settlement, but every war I got into, factions charged for it. I think it might be a bug. Don't really try to defend it that much. Some of these factions out here, since they go to this, they leave their homelands open. And the other thing to realize is this is like perfect ambush land. Lure them in, let them take the settlement, and then counterattack. Or let them walk further into your territory and take them out. It seems weird to constantly keep losing a settlement. It's not the worst strategy in the world, I found. They didn't go for any of my other lands, just this one settlement. It's bizarre in my 3 campaigns. Hopefully they change that. In which case, do be aware that this is a narrow pass. If you put it like a fortified fort or watchtower in these settlements, it does prevent enemy movement through them. Same thing down here. Building them to block like invading armies to rush into your weak settlements is really good. Between 1, 2, 3, 4 of them, you can prevent easy enemy access to this region. Just be aware, there is no path through here, which is kind of strange. So the fastest way is actually around, otherwise you have to cross rivers. The buildings that give movement speed Um, this one, Traveler's Inn and its upgrades to visitors' quarters, really strong anywhere in Hattie. Really particularly good on this guy because you have a lot of land that you control and no easy way through. Post route is the way to go. You're going to need a second army, though, pretty early on. But surprisingly, food is not a huge problem for this guy, unlike a lot of the other Hittites. Once you control the coast, build lots of food buildings, you'll be able to support a second army without too much issue. Trade your wood to the Egyptians or the Cyprians for copper or food, and you should be all set. So let's go to Royal Decrees. And this guy has an interesting route. So for a lot of factions, what you want to do is you want to grab resources early on and build up relations. This is one of the factions where I would not necessarily urge that as a strategy. Why? It's too easy to expand. It sounds bizarre, but it's true in my experience. I even did it on some of the harder difficulty and I could grow really quickly. You're going to want to get Legacy of Hattie to start, though. Workforce growth is really strong. I wish it was influence, but it isn't. Getting happiness in your capital area, good thing. Make sure your capital region doesn't revolt. Grab the food building, grab the stone, grab improved relations. Why do you still want to do this starting area? Well, food, wood, preventing people from declaring war on you until you're ready to declare war on them is still good. Snagging the Hittite legacy is great. After which point, you want to go elsewhere. However, that is the normal route. I want to propose an alternate route, which if you don't do it first and you do this route, you're going to want to do second for sure. Going for the god dedication slot. I'm not kidding. Because of how bad this guy's religion is, getting another god that provides happiness solves all your stability problems. It's really good. And since you have access to a good amount of food and your army can usually stomp everyone else in the area early game, getting the extra dedication slot, solving your public order issues, allowing your land to build up in peace as you expand, I found to be a better strategy. I was surprised. I did this in one of my campaign. Growth, wood, dedication, then go over here. Yes, I lost relations and some food early on, but having the extra god, not having to worry about happiness, which meant I didn't really have to build happiness buildings, so I didn't have to clog up my trees with artisan workshops up to bazaars of the arts. I'd still built one in each capital region for the influence control stuff, but I didn't need it as much. Whereas my other campaign where I went the more traditional expansion route, I struggled with happiness and influence for a fair amount of the game. You still want all the standard relations, food, resources, gold, stone. Getting the bronze is really good. Unfortunately, I did not find any easy way early game as this guy to get at an alliance with another Hittite. The Great King would be the logical one, but you want to overthrow him. So don't think about getting this tech anytime soon. Just focus on conquest. Unlike the other factions, resources are less precious to you because you can raid and do really well. So getting additional military stuff, the additional XP, your units are all about charging. They're not particularly strong in a holdout fight, meaning higher level units are going to be more valuable for you than other people. And your high level units are very strong at charging. So recruitment, getting them to higher levels, as well as recruiting higher tiered units, very strong. So I might even skimp on some of these luxury techs up here for construction, gold, maybe not even go for bronze. Just focus on getting to high tier units that are higher XP, stronger strategy. This guy, honestly, the military faction in my experience. The only other one that gets close is Irsu. Most of the other factions take a while to expand. This guy, I found it almost too easy. You just put your troops on the pass leading between your and the enemy's lands, ambush their army, take their settlement. It's almost too confined of a region for ambushes not to help you win wars. So ambushes galore. It's really powerful, especially because your general has some stuff that help with that. So at the beginning, you can just add Storm Warriors to all your units, which is really good. You can also get better recruitment, which is the one I'd focus on. But Mist Walking, if the weather is fog, and a fair amount of time it's fog or mist, moving on hidden in any terrain allows ridiculous ambushes. Like, I think, my guess is, this is going to be one of the better factions to actually command in a battle. Now, I haven't perfected battles myself. It takes a long time to learn that. But the fact that you can get unhidden in any terrain on your Mistwalkers, really quite useful. As well as reduce enemy movement, hunt them down. An interesting one here is this one, Relentless in his march, which I definitely would recommend. You can just rocket all over the map. By the time it requires 8 to get there. So if you look at where 8 gets you, it's plus 13 movement, plus 50. Seriously, it's like these guys invented cars in the Bronze Age. It's hilarious. There is a couple other ones that are worth mentioning here. This Overseers of Poison, reduce morale and replenishment. Really solid to help you do invasions. Unfortunately, units are recruited at full health unless you're fighting SETI. This would just this ability alone would just wreck the SETI faction on its own. Most of this other stuff, though, I'm surprised how weak his late game can be. Shadow Stance, worth mentioning though, really good for helping you win battles stuff. I would not take some of these later ones, because at some point you need to stabilize the land you rule. You don't want to just burn it all to the ground. Replenishment, movement, though, definitely the way to go for a faction that's all about war. Now, let's jump forward in time and we'll look at the other legacies, or the legacies you can pick between. So here we are, turn 27. As you can see, I've already expanded to a very large size. I'm fighting my way through Tarsus and stuff, mainly because I didn't want to pick a fight with these guys early game. I decided to go a coastal route of expansion. As you can see, not lacking in food. I've got my army going on the map. I've got another army I'm going to start building up. But we're here to talk about legacies. So I did the benevolent one under the Great King video. So I do recommend, if you want to see details on that, go check that out. This is the other one. This is assigning your generals as princes of vassal, and they get powerful titles. So they get titles. Now, the problem is this takes up one of their additional title slots. If you give them a vassal, you unlock basically additional prince titles. You have to have vassals. So first off, you have to challenge for the throne. Early game, the Great King is in charge. At some point, Civil War is going to start, unless he does really well. At which point you can join it. You're likely to be the one that starts the challenge for the throne, which I don't entirely recommend you do early on. But if you do, getting a vassal will allow you to assign this. Once you do, it gets better. My whole problem with this is the other option, the benevolence ones, is better. So you have these various unique ones you can give. The one I picked, I went for the one that reduced enemy morale as well as give me increased movement, because this guy's a defensive one. This, I think, is probably the best one for defense against sea people and other invading armies. Really good. This legacy is good, don't get me wrong. The fact that you can assign vassals to it is good until the vassal revolts. The other one, as long as you can keep one vassal, you gain access to all the benefits, plus the happiness of your people help. This one is a little bit more conditional on you having lots of vassals. My problem is it's usually better to rule the land yourself, especially with this faction that has both movement speed and the offensive capacity to basically conquer it. Being peaceful just doesn't seem to make sense. In general, this faction, I feel like this might be one of the least well put together factions. It seems to be going multiple places, raiding, gaining legitimacy, but not really encouraging stability. So you want to pick a legacy that supports stability, because as things get worse, things get worse. Right now, you kind of want to sit on keeping things happy. There's really no big benefit for you to let things fall apart, especially because you're going to be fighting people on the front line. Just pick the other legacy. This one functions. It can be very good if you get vassals. It's not worth doing. I played it further. I got several vassals. It really wasn't worth the effort I put into it. Just take your guy and rampage. I mean, I'm not kidding. It's 27 turns. I think by turn 60, I conquered most of this area. Absolutely nuts. Easiest victory right now in the game, I think. Yeah, let's look at buildings. And then we will move. That will probably bring us to the end here. So we're just going to glance over a couple of use cases for these buildings because it's worth mentioning. And I didn't do it thoroughly earlier. This mercenary hunting camp is one of your unique buildings. Unless you're defending, it's not worth building. The food income's too low, the upkeep is minor, and the XP per turn isn't worth it. Forget it even exists, is my logic there. In terms of other buildings to throw down, let's just jump to this main one here. You have your military sabotage port camps. If you have an enemy who you're going to fight and you can't beat easily, maybe the Great King is the only one I ran across, or if you're going for a world conquest and there's Egyptians, reduced movement as well as attack is good. It does somewhat affect the invading armies, but it doesn't cause enough trouble for them to really justify building it everywhere. Putting this on the board of the enemies, raiding them, weakening them before invading can be quite useful, but really disappointing amount of unique buildings, I have to say. The mercenary recruitment ones, I got through it without ever using them. You can, they're not bad. I can't justify using them exclusively though. Your base units, you should be able to overrun anybody, and at some point you just get so large you win through numbers rather than quality. Plus you reduce the enemy's morale. Like half your faction effects involve that. So makes routing enemies really easy. Oh, I should mention some of the court stuff again. We kind of went over it earlier.
Be seated, peers of the court.
I already did a video on what positions you would want to occupy in court, so go check out that guide. I think I called it Managing the Courts or something. In terms of plots, you want to plot mainly against the High King. If you want to become High King through plotting. The reality is getting High King through war is way easier. If you are going to do plotting and stuff, you can actually target the king with some decent success here. 22%. The reality is once you build it up to 6, this is going to be really high chance to succeed. It just basically means you can sap his legitimacy, which will cause the civil war. My logic is you should never do this. Yes, you want to gain legitimacy. Target the other factions. Don't target the High King himself. The reason is you want to keep the kingdom stable enough that it allows you to rapidly expand and conquer, and then you turn on the king and take him out immediately. The other options, take him out early on, cause a multifaceted civil war that you might win, but then you may not be able to be strong enough or have enough legitimacy to prevent another civil war. This is definitely not a guy to go straight for taking the throne with. Use the time when you're easily the strongest in the region to expand, conquer the land, become a powerhouse, then just go for the throne when you can inevitably win. Another reason to do that is the High King's units are really strong. Your faction struggles to beat them in one-on-one combat. You have to use ambushes, raiding, outnumbering. The longer you have to make that push for the High King, the easier it will be, especially if you want to contest it through just sheer open war and wiping him off the map. Time, resources, building up, all the better. He will start to struggle to handle the other revolts, so it's quite possible he collapses on his own, and you just simply take over that way, and you never have to worry about taking out any of his strong garrisons or defensive armies. And that's it. I'm honestly not sure what more to really tell you about this guy. His starting god is not that good. I would switch away from this. This was a bad campaign for me, and as you can see, I'm already massive. Movement restored after battles is not worth it. Go for a god that gives actually combat abilities to strengthen your army, which is not the strongest in the game, but ambushes is pretty much how you win this campaign in my experience. Ambushes, garrisons, numbers, and reinforcements. It's a very fun campaign if you want to just stomp your way across the map. Like, these guys invade. Even with militia units, I'm still doing lots of damage due to the morale reduction. Causing fear is just... Cause fear is just really strong. I don't know if it actually shows it on your unit. Oh, it does. Reduce morale penalties when nearby. Does not stack. Once you smash an enemy line, you get an earlier route, meaning you lose his units and you move on to conquer them the next one. Don't use the command. Get the passive effect. It's easy. It's strong. Go forth, have fun, and conquer the Hittite kingdom and overthrow the weak king with a complete guy who thinks he's a god. And he's a spirit. Have fun. Guy feels like he should have come out of Total Warhammer, though, a little bit. Anyway, thank you guys all for watching. If this helped you in any way, shape, or form, please do like, leave a comment, or subscribe. If you guys have any intricate strategies or why you think I should reconsider this faction to be better, leave those below. I'm sure this will be some people's favorite faction. So far, I don't feel this faction myself. Raiding is fun, but why don't you just take the land yourself? Yes, you get food, wood, stone, and gold, and XP. I just prefer to conquer the land myself. Anyway, that's it for me. Thanks for watching. See you guys all in another Let's Play or Guide. Bye for now.